Hello and welcome to this program again. We call it Democracy in Action. Nigeria is marching on, moving to 2027. Elections will take place at all levels, local government, states, and we're talking of the national elections. And of course, political parties are moving on. They're doing what they know better. They're doing what they know best in terms of wooing Nigerians to vote for them. And they therefore will have to sell candidates that are acceptable to the electorate. My name is Ben Shaman, and I'm your regular host here, and this is Third Eye Africa TV. We are at the Central Business District here in Abuja. And with me, yes, at the point some people say, politics is male-dominated, so chauvinistic, especially in Nigeria, in Africa. But we've seen that in some countries in Africa, they've started churning out female presidents. How will it look like in Nigeria, even when today we have an acting head of the electoral umpire, talking of the Independent National Electoral Commission in Nigeria, we've seen Madam May Agbamuche heading INEC for today. Will she get a permanent appointment? Well, we shall be discussing many of these things and more. And I have a guest who is part of an opposition political party, talking of the Social Democratic Party, one of the oldest parties in Nigeria, surely, even before the current democratic dispensation. I remember Chief M.K. Ohabiola used this platform to contest the election that was said to be the freest so far in Nigeria. And I want to welcome Ambassador Judith Isreal Shuaibu. She is a politician, like I've said, and chairperson, stroke executive director, Inter-Party Advisory Youth Directorate here in Nigeria and here in Abuja, and seated here with me in the studio. Madam, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ben. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Now talking politics. How is it? How are the women faring in Nigeria when we're talking about politics? And next is about blowing that whistle. On your mark, ready, go. What position is the women taking?
Well, the women are coming up as far as Nigerian politics is concerned. You know, women are gearing up, they are clamoring to be able to do more. They want to be more involved. Women are realizing their role and capacity as far as leadership is concerned. However, women are not represented enough just yet. I mean, Nigeria is still at 4%. Compared to Africa's average of 25%, which is still relatively low. But then at 4%, giving our population, that is extremely low. That is below what you would expect of a giant of a continent, you know. So there is still more that is left to be done. More is left to be seen. Yes, INEC seems to have started something, but there are a lot of speculations around the appointments. There are speculations. People fear whether or not it would last. She's still in acting capacity. She still hasn't been confirmed. So there's just a lot, but we're excited, definitely. We celebrate that win to the women folk. We celebrate that victory. And we hope that it will be sustainable, because we need to see a woman in action, you know.
Now, it's a wish. But in terms of action, what will you say the Nigerian woman should be doing behind the scene to ensure that when the next INEC position, the appointment comes on board, it should either be the acting one, who is a female, or they bring in a female. So what are the women doing behind the scene?
First of all, we need to rally round May for sure. Because see, women in Nigeria, I always say that complaining and whining will never get us anywhere. What will get us somewhere is active, intentional strategy. It needs to be deployed. We need to clamor for this. We need to rally around this. We need to push for it. We need to make sure there are more women first as the umpire of INEC, but then in also other strategic positions in Nigeria. So we need to operate with intentionality and intent. So that means that you don't just have to run for Senate, because that's what this opens. And some of us have been clamoring and advocating for this strategy, saying that if we're intentional about how women engage leadership and politics, we should be able to see changes and difference. So for instance, now we have a woman now in acting capacity at the very least. That highlights the possibility. So what then do? We should clamor that a woman has to be maintained and sustained for that position. And then we need to also look at other positions. What stops a woman from becoming EFCC chairman? Relevant parastatals and establishments in Nigeria. That, I believe, is a massive strategy that women can definitely leverage at this time in Nigerian politics.
Now, you are of the inter-party, relationship, kind of. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking of inter-party, you stitch this party together, political parties together. Mm-hmm. Now, by way of also looking at it this way, what will you think should be the influence to that political parties can bring to bear? Hoping that too they believe in the woman, being appointed, or a woman being appointed.
Oh, absolutely. You see, political parties have a huge role to play as far as increasing representation of women and inclusion of women in Nigerian politics and leadership. Political parties have to include more women in its administration to begin with. We need to be able to see beyond affirmative action. In fact, not everybody respects the affirmative action, right, of 35% representation. We need to see more people honor that. And then we need to see more political parties take it beyond that to intentionally including women. I have to celebrate the Labour Party, I assure you, with the likes of Senator Nadi Usman coming into play, and all of that. And then for me, too, of the SDP, at some point, we had 4 women on the National Executive on the National Working Committee. We had 4, we're hoping for more. I was National Welfare of the Social Democratic Party, became the National Publicity of Social Democratic Party. So we are making baby steps, but we need to take giant leaps now. We need to see more women as chairpersons of positions. And then IPAC is also leading the way, the Inter-Party Advisory Council, because I was given the position to be able to head a whole directorate of youth affairs. There are a number of women too within the IPAC. We can definitely see more, but it's a step in the right direction, and more political parties need to intentionally give women the room to be able to add to national development in executive capacities.
Now, before now, and it still remains, you see that the women are just not in the forefront when it comes to campaigning and all that stuff. Some are not, they are hamstrung by some traditions and all that stuff. How will you say the woman should set herself free to go to the politics in Nigeria, especially when you look at some cultures?
Well, you see, first of all, I think that for the women folk, the battle needs to begin from the mind. It needs to start from inside. You need to conquer the notions around politics that don't have to apply to you. People say politics is a dirty game, so a lot of people have cultural limitations based on that. People say it is challenging, and it is. As a matter of fact, I would tell you that I've been around the terrain for some time. I can tell you, you have to have tough skin in the game. However, women need to understand this, that the only way that narrative can change is if we actively engage to deliver a different narrative, is if we actively collaborate to deliver a different narrative. And then beyond culture, and really, there are women who have come from all walks of life and have done well. There are women who have come from all diverse cultures and backgrounds, and these women are intentional and deliberate. It's just that there are a few. But I hope that other women will be able to take the cue and challenge from these women and say, okay, if there are women who have come forth and have done well in spite of their background, because for instance, I'm Fulani from the north, but I'm in politics, and then, so women should take cues from that. That's definitely another vantage point. And then another thing will be, yes, women usually encounter challenges such as limitation of resources. Women, to run elections in Nigeria, to be part of politics and leadership in Nigeria is ridiculously expensive, outrageously expensive. But what do we do about that? Yes, the government has a role to play. Yes, political parties have a role to play. Yes, leaders, legislature has a role to play in terms of raising structures to make it a little easier for women to be able to also participate. But at the same time, women need to also pick up the challenge and say, let's come together. If I'm doing business, let me do business to be able to fund this thing that I'm aspiring for. Let me be able to do something. And then that at some point, even if you encounter a challenge, women must be able to understand that hope must not be deterred. And then on top of all of that is that we cannot undermine the place of joining our hands together to get this job done. So that means that another woman will not just support you. First, of course, we need support at the polling unit, like you said, because, you will see candidates emerge, only one vote. That means even her husband or her relatives didn't vote for her, and all of that. We need to believe in ourselves. And then we need for women to realize and project for people to also believe in them. Then women need to also develop capacity. You need to develop capacity. When you are given the opportunity, what would you do with it? What do you do with it? How do you carry yourself? Yes, politics has gimmicks. A lot of narratives that are even untrue will come up about you. But what is more important is your character and integrity, stamina and focus. At the end of the day, if you bring that and develop your capacity so that when we get there, you are not relegated and being asked, oh, is it your emotions speaking right now or is it what is relevant? So when the capacity is being given, let's make the most of it as well. And then beyond that, when we now have women with that kind of breed, that have strategy, have capacity, then we can now join hands together and be able to say, even women who have the financial wherewithal, let's begin to look at how do we support women who don't have that, without a sense of entitlement or obligation at the same time. So it's an all-round work that needs to be done.
Now, this is coming when there are calls or moves to tinker with or amend the Nigerian constitution. And some people feel that, look, okay, let's have some special seats, allocations to the women in Nigeria at the state level, federal level. And you think that is good, Omen?
To have special seats for women
as lawmakers.
Well, the thing is, you see, I have a little differing view from that. I think it's good. And I think it's one step again further in the right direction. But it will not win us the results we're looking for. So seats can be created, yes. But let's examine what has been going on in the trajectory of Nigerian leadership and politics so far. Political parties, as a case in point, usually would create a position called, for instance, woman leader. And you will see that it's a woman that has to head that position. And so therefore, for several things within most political parties, it is that position that she has to occupy, and that's it. Then they look for other positions that look like near feminine experience and then just give women, and that's it. But is that all women can really bring to the table? We have women who have tenacity, who have drive, who have capacity. We've seen the Okonjo-Iwealas of this day. We've seen several women in different capacities heading banks of industries. They are doing well. They have expertise. These women have capacity. And so therefore, if we keep relegating women to that, because you see, when you push for special seats sometimes, I have a challenge with the word special, it means that if we're not careful, we may create a system where there's a box that women are kept in and they have to function from that. So that may move us further along in the journey temporarily, but in the grand scheme of things overall, we need more than that. Women need to be able to come in on their own merit and be given the opportunity across board. If a woman needs to be Senate president someday, and possibly maybe even president of the nation, like Namibia is doing, why can't we do that? We've seen women of capacity. We've seen them do the work. We've seen them do well. I was the most excited person about Binani in the last cycle of election, even though she was governor for 24 hours. But that is something. That is something to reckon with, And so, therefore, we need to be able to explore that. So, yes, special seats or allocation or whatever, maybe it's one more step further. But we need to clamor for more.
And in clamoring for more, there was this statement made by former President Muhammadu Buhari. Oh, the women might not be seen after all. Mm-hmm. And since then, we saw that in terms of women participation, appointment. PDP had more numbers in appointments and even at the National Assembly. But the coming of APC, the number went down only for President Buhari then to say that, look, women actually belong to the kitchen, and that he never controverted it, he never withdrew it, and he went with that statement. And that is bound to a kind of influence. I mean, some people who believe in him
Absolutely.
believe in what he said.
Absolutely.
So how can women come out of this when stakeholders like former Muhammadu Buhari would make that statement and it stands?
Yes.
So how can the woman folk come out of this?
Well, you see, it is an unfortunate statement, made by the former president, late now, bless his soul, at that time. And there are many men who share that sentiment. In fact, there are some women who share that sentiment, who believe that their role is very confined to a certain cultural or societal expectation. And it is rather unfortunate. First things that women need to do is to realize that is untrue. It is untrue. We need to stop selling this narrative further as though it's a reality. It is not. It is not true. Yes, a woman has the capacity to nurture. A woman has the capacity to raise. A woman has the capacity to intently create things. But it transcends the kitchen. The kitchen is a beautiful place to show the work of art. But the woman has capacity for more. So I need the women folk to first understand that. And then, of course, when leaders are making statements like this, it cascades, like you rightly said, yes, to people who share this sentiment. And it is a grave and a serious reflection of the fact that we are still rolling within the confines of sentiments and primitive thinking. And we need to outgrow that. But you see, while women cannot change every man, while women cannot do this, we have to start selling the different narrative. If people say a particular thing about you consistently over a period of time, and you begin to accept it as truth, it gets established. But when you begin to see yourself differently, that's why I made mention of we need to reorient ourselves as women. You need to first believe that you have capacity to create more. You have capacity to do more. And then we now have to come together and then say, okay, so what can we do? When you see a fellow woman doing something, celebrate her. Don't bring her down. When you bring her down, you are literally enabling that narrative. But we thank God because there are a generation of women now that are coming together to do better. And so I believe that the first thing is for us as women to sell a different narrative than the narrative that has been sold about us over generations.
Let me call you a general, not of the military, but a general of the youth, because you occupy the position of chairperson, executive director, Inter-Party Advisory Council, Youth Directorate. The youths constitute the voting population. You belong to the opposition party, but in terms of making children, youths, my apologies, also take part in these elections massively. What will you be doing as at the head of this interparty council, especially for youth affairs? You command them, they talk to you, you talk to them, and those. How do you galvanize? How do you bring them? How do you ensure they vote?
Right. Now, you see, the journey towards reaching the young populace of Nigeria is but a streamline that requires intentionality. And the Inter-Party Advisory Council has taken the step to say, how do we influence this? Now, the bulk of the work that resides within the Inter-Party Advisory Council, which is like the umbrella for political parties, right, is to be able to advise political parties on how to navigate. You see, each political party is expected to have youth leaders. It's supposed to have people that are leading the younger generation or trying to influence the younger generation. And so the Inter-Party Advisory Council functions in such a way, especially now, the Youth Directorate, in such a way that we are clamoring, we are conversing, we are sharing ideas, we are reorienting the results that we have seen so far. The reason is because the council may not be able to do it alone, but with the collaboration of all political parties, there's a further reach to the Nigerian young populace to be able to say, see, there's an opportunity here. Whatever systems have been handed to you, you don't have to embrace and run with it the way it is. If you want change, why not let's come together, put our hands together, and actually use instinct, strategy, and intention to be able to change what the narrative really is. Now, that's the work that we're doing. Engaging as many youth leaders as we can across board, then other relevant stakeholders to be able to reach these youths. But like I said, it is a stream of a journey that requires a lot of intentionality, and even the government of the day has to be able to collaborate with establishments to be able to get this job done. Because truly, the youth cannot sit on the sidelines. The youth cannot afford to continue being distracted. The youth cannot afford to keep treating political issues, topics, and leadership with levity. The reason is because it is at the expense of the future of democracy and at the expense of the future of Nigeria. So we're trying to see how we can engage more people, more stakeholders, and we're doing that on ground right now, starting with political party youth leaders to be able to drive this change.
You have a big job because you also have the youth at the point they are recruited as what they call political vigilantes. For some people, protect this man at all cost, protect his vote at all cost. It does not matter. Former President Goodluck Jonathan will say, no man's single drop of blood, it's worth his political ambition. Now, to what extent can you, the youth general, can ensure that, look, the youths know there is sanctity of life. It's all about, a stable polity so that we don't rock the boat. So how can youths,
Yes. Well, the truth invariably remains that it is reorientation of the system that will still bring about first the changes that we are expecting. There's a role, the role we are playing is a reorientation. The role we are playing is more engagement. The role we are playing is to make it plain, because sometimes these things are ambiguous. Sometimes a lot of people don't really understand the dynamics of politics or what leadership really is. The average young person on the streets is not very aware, is not very informed. So we're bringing that information bare. But now we need to collaborate. The government of the day, leaders of the day, need to collaborate with us to make sure that these people are also engaged. When the young person gets involved in political space or leadership, it is important that we are not engaging them for the wrong reasons as well. Because the responsibility doesn't only lie on the shoulders of the youth. Some of these people are doing these things really to eat. They are doing these things to be able to survive, because in the grand scheme of things, they are out of touch. They don't understand what you are doing. So if you offer them something that looks like, okay, Shuaibu is just to sweat right now, I'll be able to feed my family. Some of these people have genuine reasons for doing this. It doesn't excuse what they do, but we need to also understand that. And so as an older generation, and especially leaders in Nigerian political system, can every leader pick the challenge to say, it is not worth it for personal ambition to keep sacrificing the future? If we intentionally look at that narrative, it will greatly make our job easier.
And still making it easier, the older class, the politicians, there's always what they call kayan aiki. The knives will be there, some intoxicants here and there. And again, this is unleashed on the youths. Now, in terms of political education or awareness, look at when finally someone wins this election, they select their immediate family, come to collect certificate of return, and you don't get to see them again. To what extent, let me use Charlie Boy's term, to what extent will our mumu don't do, our foolishness? To what extent do we say, look, we youths, our mumu don't do, our foolishness don't do, so that let's look at our future with hope?
Absolutely. You see, the average Nigerian youth needs to realize that the hunger that you may make sacrifice for, or whatever personal reason you may make sacrifice for, haunts you. It haunts you for the longer time than the immediate gratification of whatever you may get in return for carrying out those acts. The average Nigerian youth needs to understand that. the older generation cannot continue to use you as puppets. Because that's essentially what they are doing. They are using you as puppets. They are stealing your future, stealing your destiny, depriving you and your family of what you should statutorily be benefiting just by being Nigerian. There are certain basics that should be available to you. So they may give you 5,000 naira right now, or they may give you whatever stipend right now to be able to do a grievous act that may cost you your life, by the way, thereby still causing great harm for your family. And then at the end of the day, what is it? When they are supposed to be giving you stable life enough to be able to feed without needing that stipend. So you need to understand and realize that your energy, the youth energy, is supposed to be used to demand for accountability and responsibility from leaders, not to cause havoc. So there's a need for the average Nigerian youth to realize the power that's in their hands. See, these people might have been running systems. Leaders in the older generation especially, might have been running systems for a while and has been handed over. It's not even fully handed over. And they intend to maybe hand it over to you decade. But you need to realize the fact that you have the power because you have numbers. Whatever you have numbers for, you have the population to be able to change that narrative. You just need to wake up and realize that. So the average Nigerian youth needs to embrace that as truth so that the older generation will not continue to sacrifice and waste your lives for private reasons.
I'm beginning to think that all the political parties, all as in all, because one of the requirements is that they must have a national office in Abuja and have in the states, so to speak. Now, I'm beginning to see that there ought to be some kind of some national conference for the youth where issues of this nature are being tackled. Do you really have things of that nature? I mean, the inter-party, all political parties coming on board one platform. Let's tell ourselves some home truth.
Yes. So, you know, this question you asked me is very dear to me and very important, you know, because this has been the subject of discourse since my assumption of office as the ED of the Directorate of Youth Affairs, IPAC, Inter-Party Advisory Council. Because you see, the first things we said is, for this conversation to be driven home, for this conversation to be delivered, we must bring everybody together and have that conversation in the same room at the same time. I've been clamoring for this, Mr. Ben, it would interest you to know, for 2 years straight. It hasn't happened yet. Why? There's no funding for it. There's no logistics for it. And then when you engage, you know, stakeholders or you engage people relevant and say, okay, this is a subject of discourse that's important. This is a subject of discourse we need to drive. They would tell you all manner of things. And you know, IPAC, of course, doesn't have, so to speak, funding. It has to generate how it would move, and it is operating in an advisory capacity. So it's not like there's an allocation somewhere or there's anything. So if you're holding particular office, which is another interesting thing about the Nigerian political space, especially in political parties, right? When you're holding a political position in a political party or in a party advisory council, you have to figure out a way to source for funding to be able to drive whatever initiative or ideas that you have. Now, this has been the challenge. Again, this further deepens the decay. Because people are thinking, no, why should this establishment be the one to drive that? Why? It doesn't matter if that is your job description. This is another problem that we need to figure out in Nigeria. If we want to establish democracy, if we want to institutionalize as a nation that's developed at some point, if we want to be able to meet the basic needs of citizens, we cannot continue to compromise like this. You engage with stakeholders and they will tell you, no, there's this other conference that our own organization is doing somewhere, and so therefore this or that. You engage with people in government capacity right now, and then they will tell you things like, you know, there's this other initiative by the government or this person or that person, and we think that you should probably just not have this and all of that. So these are some of the challenges that we're facing that we hope to be able to eradicate, you know. But this subject of discourse is the highlight point of being able to engage youth, because you need the political parties to do it. And so singling out, maybe one political party tries to do a mini something that doesn't capture Nigerians. The population is vast. And so we must all rally round and realize that this is a collective responsibility that must be done.
collective responsibility. It's not my duty to advise. It's my duty to interview so that we get the best from all of you. But I think at this point, there are some agencies too, like the National Republican Institute, the Republican Institute in America, the Democratic Institute in America, the EU, even JICA, Japan, and INEC too. They do have some funds for what they call political education or awareness. I think that at this point, INEC and IPAC can join hands to begin to work on that. Well, we'll just go on a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking about party administration. Are we getting it right when we're talking about administration of political parties? We are not going to single out a party and begin to say, how do you run yours? But generally, how do we ensure that there is internal democracy among political parties across boards? Because we see that they are always having some crises here and there, and they are the very reasons where some politicians elected jump overboard and leave their electorate, join another party. My name is Ben Shaman, and the program is Democracy in Action. We are in Third Eye Africa TV. Our guest is Ambassador Judith Isreal Shuaibu. She's from Kaduna State, like myself, and the General of the Youth in Nigeria. We'll come to all of that.
We're talking about South and the North. You talk about middle belt. Currently in Nigeria, we don't have middle belt. North Central is what we have. And they are included in the North. If the perception is because Nigeria is standing on a tripod, you have Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, they are the owners of Nigeria. That is a very wrong perception. These are major tribes in Nigeria. Simple.
Yeah.
Nigeria is owned by every single citizen of this country.
If you go to civilized nations, they possibly have, stratified their political parties such that those who play at the national level are there. And at the local level, you have other minor political parties playing there. And it gives sense of belonging to every citizen to be able to contest.
And in fact, once you have joined APC, all your sins are forgiven.
It's okay. It's okay. Off your mind. It's okay.
This is Third Eye Africa TV, exposing crime, savaging the nation.
Welcome back. Now that we've taken small water, let us talk party administration. You are the National Public Relations Officer of the Social Democratic Party. And we've seen that in many political parties, we have crises here and there, crisis of confidence, no confidence, lack of confidence, deficit trust. We no longer trust this person. Why is it hard sometimes administering a political party that wants to administer a whole country or a whole state? I mean, give us some insight.
You see, the challenges are on multiple fronts for political parties. First is political parties have the average, mentality and sentiments that erodes systems as well. So you find out that eats deep into political party administration. That is one thing. But then again, you also have external influence. If we're talking about political parties operating in this day and age, it has its own peculiar problems as well. And the peculiarity of that challenge is such that there's external influence. So if you would remember, maybe a couple of months back, there were conversations around whether or not Nigeria wants to turn into a one-party system. That challenge is fundamental. How is it possible that out of 19 political parties, we're struggling to see which political party is functioning properly? Where is that done? I don't think there's any part of the world that is supposed to be the case. One would expect that at the very least there will be opposition, there will be ruling government, there will be opposition. But for some reason, it would appear that in Nigerian political scheme, opposition is almost eradicated. So, of course, within political party administrations internally, most political parties are aware and they know that there may be internal challenges in terms of infrastructure, structures, and all of that, and process of administration. But there's a bigger challenge based on external influence that threatens to eradicate and take extinct or drive extinct political party, especially the opposition parties. So these are some of the current challenges that are facing political parties, for sure.
And some people will believe that there has to be a law prohibiting, hindering, abolishing completely what you call cross-carpeting. Once you are in this party, you remain there. If you no longer want, just disappear. But if you now have to cross-carpet and you are sitting on a political party seat that sponsored you, you can't carry that seat to that place. Resign, go contest and see if you win and continue. So do you think that it's better that this is hindered, prohibited entirely?
100%. I completely agree. I agree with that because, you see, a political party will not have invested in you, stood by you, produced you as a candidate, worked with you, rallied round you through the election process, only for you to win, and then you decide that the grass is greener on the other side or the banquet is bigger somewhere, and then you choose to go there because of personal interest. One will beg to question, was the ambition really about personal interest or about the Nigerian people? Because if it is about the Nigerian people, what is this moving up and down based on personal interest? But I would also balance that by saying sometimes there are legitimate reasons why people cross. And that is why the law has to be very clear. Sometimes the challenge we have in Nigeria is that the laws are not very clear to interpret. So the law has to be very clear on what grounds you are to move to another party, and it has to be adhered to strictly. For instance, in the case where maybe a political party is literally at the verge of extinction, maybe because of really riled up internal heated crisis, whereby it makes it impossible or near impossible for a candidate to be able to participate in an election, that just may be ground for consideration, for example. Or even worse cases than that, right? Maybe the political party is non-existent anymore, or maybe the political party is deregistered. Things of which, of course, no political party can be deregistered if they're elected members. But it really must be frowned at, except on extreme cases, and the law has to clearly state the cases, and there has to be penalty for breaching that. Because sometimes the challenges we have is that it's not that the law does not exist, it's that it is not implemented, is that there is no follow-through. And that's why we still see people, cross-carpeting and romancing up and down at will. But this really needs to be frowned at, because at the end of the day, politics and leadership must not be about personal interest, it must be for the people. That's what democracy is supposed to be about.
And if it must be for the people, then there has to be an ideology.
Yes.
Do Nigerian politicians actually have an ideology? Because when you look at it, a government in power today, they follow. That government is defeated, there's a new one, they follow. So where is this ideology? Are there really ideologies in Nigerian politics?
Hardly ideologies in Nigerian politics. That's just the truth. And it's part of the mayhem that's plaguing our systems, and that's something that needs to be looked at. We need a new breed of politicians that have ideology, that have principle, that they live by, that have conviction, that when you are threading on something, let us know that this is what you are threading for. Till tomorrow, we will still know a Nelson Mandela for what he stood for. Why can't we have a generation of people who have that? We need that. And that is why it's important to include women and include youths, so that we can have a new breed of people within the Nigerian political space and see for a change. Because we definitely need that. I think we've recycled for too long. And there's need to be able to bring in fresh minds with fresh perspective, with convictions, with ideology, with principle, with integrity. It's very important.
Now, you said we need youths. And that reminds me of an encounter I had with Matama Sule, blessed memory. He used to be Nigerian permanent reps at the UN. So when they were talking about youths running, you say, well, you see, sometimes the new breeds bring grit. Because of lack of experience, they need to acquire, get power, get wealth at the expense of governance. And so some people feel that in terms of experience too, the youth will have to do into what you call mentorship, mentee, and all that stuff. Should they go all alone? Do they really have the money? In view of the fact that this is a capitalist, well-intensive money display in Nigeria when it comes to politics. Can the youth withstand the older one?
Well, not every youth may be able to withstand it, but there are young people who will be able to withstand it. And first of all, it is rather really sad to, first of all, that the criteria for choosing to participate in leadership and politics is that you have to consider whether you have the capital. That's rather sad. That it is not based on what you can bring to the table. It's not based on capacity. It's not based on merit and principle. It's not based on who will get the job done. The first consideration in Nigeria would be, do you have the capital for it? That's sad. That's a narrative we need to pick up the challenge to change. That is number one. Number two, the second thing is this, that it is true that there are certain young people who wind up in spaces that really brings to question, or rather makes the older generation grovel, makes the older generation laugh. It is sad, but is that the representation of what would make up the truth of the reality? No, it is not. If we are saying that the youth are inexperienced, I beg to differ. We still have the Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso of this day. He's not 40 yet. We still have young people heading nations like in Senegal. Have they made a mess of the system? We see contrary. We still have countries like France, who have had very young people lead. We have still had a 17-year-old president in this world before. And so why is it in Nigeria that we vehemently continue to insist that the young people can't do it? Yes, they can. The difference is this. Are we even making room for them to actively participate? Or are we selecting a few that we can just hand over to as like a hereditary kind of passed down generation, hand-me-downs kind of system? We can't do that. The reason you are judging certain young people is because you handpicked them. We need to open our doors, and it's true that young people need mentorship. It's true that young people need to learn. It's true that young people need to garner experience, and that's another challenge for the young people. Don't only aspire for positions. Get in political spaces like political parties and XYZ. You need that to garner your experience as well. You need to sharpen it. But at the same time, the subject of conversation is this, that if you do not open the door and give them room to be able to train, how would they gain the mentorship? Because what we have seen in Nigeria is a lot of young people are in grave difficulty, not just bound by resources, but bound by people looking down on them. There are a lot of opportunities you can't really leverage in Nigeria by virtue of your age. And that is sad that at the level where we are as a democratic nation, these are the conversations we're having. We need to pick up the challenge and we need to fix that. And we need to do it quickly because our democracy is on the line, is at stake.
Now, the concept in Nigeria and in many places, this thing you call godfatherism, then you also have a mentor-mentee, and when you have a godfather, then you have the godson in the political circle. To what extent do you say this is helping or not helping the growth of Nigerian democracy? If
it was done properly in terms of the parameters of the existence of that godfatherism is from intentional mentorship to grow people, to develop people and give people exposure and to be able to serve as a ladder or building stone for people to grow, it would have been fine. The challenge we have in Nigeria is that is being abused. We see godfatherism systems in such a way that you don't want certain connections or resources or certain establishment to slip your grasp. You still want to be in control. That is why you bring a puppet to inherit after you. And that is the challenge that we're facing. If it was done for the sake of mentorship in its truth and entirety, it would have been fine. But the dynamic that Nigerian leaders take it is what is wrong. It's a problem. It's a menace, as a matter of fact. You find out that people would bring or raise people and say, hey, this one is my boy. This one is my girl. And so they do it in such a way that you don't have a voice, you can't speak, you can't grow, you can't elevate, you are there to do their bidding. Like I said, a puppet. How does a nation grow with that? And then you expect certain things like resources, revenue. You expect that you are the one who will still be calling the shots even after you are away from the office because Nigerian maybe constitution will not let you do certain things over certain tenures, over certain age, but you still want to be in control. You can't, that is not how democracy is supposed to stand. And until we checkmate that, see, we need reorientation and more intentional leaders who are more growth conscious, development conscious than they are personal interest conscious. That's what we need in this nation.
And in terms of there are instances like governors or even local government chairmen, if I told they ever have power because their money is being swallowed by some by some people in power. Now there's this weaponization, I'll call it, of allocation of projects. Some governors will believe, look, this area does not need me, and therefore projects are not being cited there. Some will say you are weaponizing. Now, how do you intend to woo those people when indeed you've seen them as political enemies? You collect taxes from there, but they have nothing to show for it, yet you want them to follow you. How do we overcome all this weaponize? Okay, I won't send a project there. I won't give them fertilizer. Okay, let them suffer a kind of, as opposed to real political figures that must be followed. How do you endear those who oppose you to follow you when indeed you don't give them projects?
Exactly. It's a huge question to ask. That mentality is very backwards, it's very archaic, and it doesn't serve in the best interest of Nigeria and development, you see. Because now you do that, so you do selective projects. If you do selective projects, then you expect a certain result from these people. But you see, the responsibility is on the people, not on the people even doing it. The responsibility to change that lies heavily on the people who have been sidelined. If you have been sidelined, why are you collecting spaghetti and voting the person? If you've been sidelined, why are you collecting 500 naira? Why are you collecting 1,000, 2K, 3K, 5K to still vote those people? It's almost like Nigerians usually have some form of amnesia sometimes when election season comes. You forget the history and the deeds of the past. You must use the history and the deeds of the past to be able to judge whether or not somebody is competent enough for a particular position. We must stop to forget precedents when we are voting. That is how Nigerians can take back their authority and take back their power and demand the dividends of democracy from people. I think that if we do that, we'll be able to at least checkmate the extent with which that culture goes.
We are getting very close to this, to the end of this interview. But another weapon I want to hear your comment on is this issue of hunger.
Yeah.
Ayofayo Sheikh, former governor of Ekiti State, said you need to have stomach infrastructure to get votes. In other words, if you don't give out something, you don't get the votes. The electorate also believe if we don't collect now, we are not going to see these people any longer as soon as they enter office. I mean, do you think this is another weapon in terms of stomach infrastructure? Give me, I give you.
Absolutely. Poverty has been weaponized in Nigeria. It is no news that there's hunger in Nigeria. Things are not the way they used to be. They're not even remotely close to what we grew up to meet at all. However, you see, I think that for those who have the stomach infrastructure struggle and feel that the only way they can benefit from the national cake is by collecting those hand-me's during election, at least at all, 9 bad pass. That's what the average Nigerian says. You know, for those who have that mentality, here's my recommendation. If you want to take your piece of the national cake, I cannot have beef with you. I can't tell you what to do or how to get it. However, when you get it, you must still vote your conscience. Not just conscience, you must still do the right thing. Because what would those people do? Come and imprison you because you did the right thing? Your choice is your choice. Your vote is your choice. It is your power. So you can still decide who needs to be in that office in spite of whether or not somebody gives you anything or not. That is a collective power that must be harnessed, must be used, must be leveraged upon. See, when people are in a particular community and locality, the way we rule out Nigerians as though Nigerians really lack capacity to be able to decipher certain things. People at the grassroots really know who is doing well and who is not doing well. So I think that at that point of votings and election season, we just need more people to remember who's doing well and who is not doing well. And if your definition of doing well is somebody giving you small change, well, I'm sorry, the national cake you're actually entitled to is much bigger than that. That if you put people who are responsible, who have ideology, who have principle, who are there to do the work, you actually benefit more. Because if there's a road in your town, you are benefiting more. If there's a hospital that's functioning, not just one, multiple, that you can just walk in and get easy healthcare service, you will benefit more. You won't even need to spend the money, the 5,000 you are looking for. If there's somebody who provides education system, your children are growing well, you would flourish better. So those basic amenities are the things you should be looking for, not the money to eat on that day based on stomach infrastructure. And if the structures around you are well, even your stomach will be grateful for it at the end of the day. So I think we need a reorientation. We need to look at it from a slightly different perspective. I think that's what it is.
So, last. Now, you are of the SDP, you are the National Public Relations Officer. So, what makes you believe that Nigerians should just queue behind SDP because we are different?
Of course, if there's a difference, you should definitely rally behind difference.
So, what are these?
Because what has going with the norm done for you? Going with the norm has landed us where we are, at least over the last 10 years. It has been worse than it has ever been in the history of Nigeria. And so what has that done for you? You must try something different. They say that to continue at doing a particular thing is insanity. Is equated to insanity, you know? Because if we've tried something over a decade and it is not working, it is not working. We have to try something else. Your choice can be the SDP, I recommend it should be, or your choice can be whatever you are convicted would deliver based on your personal challenges and preference and based on what the nation needs. I believe that every Nigerian should vote along those lines. Every Nigerian should rally behind what they truly believe should work, not continuing in the same pattern because the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know. In the case of Nigeria, you need to try out other angels. Very important.
Very important. So how has your governor performed? You are from Lere local government.
Yes.
And so how has Obasani, governor of Kaduna State, changed the fortune of Lere local government, as you know?
Well, he is of the same party, you know. He's of the
when
same cloth.
Same party,
He's of the same cloth we're talking about, that Nigerians need to break from. You know, personally, Obasani can do better. I believe so very strongly. He thinks he's doing his best. He thinks he's doing well. But the people of Nigeria, especially like you pointed where I'm from, the people of Lere expect that Obasani would do better. Because particularly, I can give a popular example. The road from Mangombawa to Pembegwa is not palatable. A pregnant woman should not drive on that road. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So the people of Lere may beg to differ. And the people of other parts of Kaduna may beg to differ. So what I would say to him in candid advice is that the governor of Kaduna should step up and do better. Sometimes don't just sit in the illusion of doing well. Practically go around and see if what you are doing is effective and is touching base. That's what's important.
Actually, the way you painted the road Pambegua and Wambawa and all that, if you also take Manchok, for example, in Kaura local government, you pass Beniki, pass Matwa, go Cheka, Bondon, and then you go to Rahama. Rahama is part of Kauru local government. Then go to Chawai. Then you again go and link up with Lere. That road is impassable.
I'm telling you.
When there were attacks around a place called Mekakpang, even the soldiers who wanted to go intervene, even though they reached there, but their vehicles also got stopped because there's just, in terms of helping the rural areas,
right, good
roads. When there are attacks, they hardly reach there. 2014, I still remember, around Bondon area, around 150 people were killed one single night. They were not fighting anybody, Before soldiers could come again, bad road. I think that the governor should look at that area seriously, so that
security in general.
Honestly,
you need to look at it holistically. People are paying heavy price.
He is trying, but I think he should look at those areas. They are very, very key.
Yes.
And it is here that we have to end this program, Democracy in Action, and I will be speaking with, I call her the commander of the Nigerian youth, because she is of the directorate of the youths in terms of the Inter-Party Advisory Council of Nigeria. She is also the National Publicity Secretary of the Social Democratic Party. I'm talking of Ambassador Judith Isreal. Shuaibu. I want to thank you for coming to Third Eye Africa.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a wonderful pleasure, and I hope together we make and create change in Nigeria.
Thank you. And as we say, proudly Nigeria.
Proudly Nigeria.
Thank you very much. And thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you.
Thanks.